This does speak to exactly what we talked about, though, the plethora of options that are available as day two linebackers. I want to talk to you guys about this year's linebacker group. It's a interesting group. I think depending on whose sport you're looking at as far as our actual rankings, our valuations for this linebacker group, we're talking double-digit linebackers inside the top 100 players. Now, I don't think we necessarily predictively think all those guys are going to go, but I think that's the part that I'd like to start this conversation with as far as who are some of your day two favorites. We know about Nakobe Dean and Devin Lloyd. Those guys are perceived to be the top two linebackers in this year's class. But when you get into round two and round three, guys that might have some limitations, but you think about the things that they can do well and you think they can be starters at the next level, who are some of your favorites?
I think that my favorite is Chad Muma, linebacker out of Wyoming. He is someone that has all the intangible things that you want in your linebacker. There's someone that can call the defense and get guys in line and still execute the assignment. This is someone who has prowess both against the run and the pass. He made a significant amount of splash plays this past year. He's got great size, not necessarily a great athlete in terms of speed and quickness, but someone who plays with the required level instincts that you want from a high level future starter. And I think this guy does have true 3-down value, and I think the teams will see that. And if he isn't a day one starter, he's going to play every special teams for you, which you want your linebackers that don't start to do. So I would say Chad Muma.
I'll go with JoJo Doman out of Nebraska. He's a linebacker. I'm a big fan. If you talk about length, talking about athleticism and range, he has all those things in spades. And in today's NFL, where you want your linebackers and your second-level defenders to be able to cover grass and play in space and be an effective player in both the run and the passing game, JoJo Doman can do all those things. And one of the reasons why I love JoJo Doman is his tenacity and just the mindset he plays with. Like, when he's filling the alley and he's coming down in the run game, he's looking to take your head off. He plays fast, physical, really urgent. And then as a former safety, he has really nice zone instincts. He's a really good zone defender. He's excellent in his zone drops. Really good ball skills and playmaking ability for a linebacker. And so I think his athletic upside will allow him to hear his name early on day two.
Oh, man, you guys picked great options, too, that I could have went with. I was thinking about Chad Muma the whole time, but I'll go with Troy Andersen out of Montana State. Yeah. And he's such an interesting story with a guy that played quarterback, played running back in Montana State, and then kind of flipped over the last couple of seasons at linebacker and was the conference player of the year after, doing really big-time things on the offensive side of the football. But he gives you legit size, explosiveness, tackling ability. His range is unbelievable. You love the urgency that he plays with. You like him in coverage, right? The athleticism that he has shows up in coverage. The big thing is just kind of processing a little bit more consistently against the run and just feeling out those instincts and angles to the football when he has to play downhill into the line of scrimmage. But, with more time playing the position and just kind of fully embracing playing linebacker, I think that piece can come. And so there's just so much to like about Troy. And I'm not sure that he's an immediate contributor, but it shouldn't take long for him to get on the field and sub, help you on teams, and eventually be a really solid starter for an NFL defense.
He'll take snaps somewhere.
Right? Oh, 1,000,000%. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I got to go with Oklahoma linebacker Brian Asamoah. Like, this is a really fun player, right? Like, he's explosive, sideline to sideline. I think he came in at the combine 6 foot, 225 pounds. So that's a little light, right, for an inside linebacker. But this guy hits you with all 225 pounds. When he arrives with bad intentions, and I was extremely excited about that. And I just talked about him playing inside linebacker, and it wasn't necessarily great, right? There were some instinct things that he can work on, but I think his ability in pass coverage and how fluid he was as a linebacker when he got depth, he got a lot of depth, right? And he was able to really run with that number 3 wide receiver, and he made a play I believe it was in 2020 in the Cotton Bowl or the Sugar Bowl against Florida, right, where he really dropped those 20, 30 yards and intercepted the ball and really showed really good skills in zone coverage. So when you think about where the NFL is today, I think this is a very valuable football player because in base, he's probably your weak side linebacker, right? But then when you go into nickel situations, you may take your Mike or Sam off the field, and he's able to stay on the field, but give you that pass coverage ability, but then also he doesn't really compromise you in the run game also for those teams that may want to pull out a sneaky draw play. Like how many times do we see that, right? 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 10, and they get that draw play because of the personnel that's on the field. So I think this is a high-level football player that offers teams some really good versatility.
Now, I want to tell you guys who I'm excited about, but I do want to let you guys know you did it again. I said, I'm going to take Chad Muma. And then Chad Muma came, and I said, I'm going to do Troy Andersen. And then I said, I'm going to do JoJo Doman. And then I'm going to do Brian Asamoah. So this does speak to exactly what we talked about, though, the plethora of options that are available as day 2 linebackers that have limitations, but you understand what those limitations are. I take Brian Asamoah as an example, right? I see a lot of Jerome Baker from the Miami Dolphins in his game coming out of Ohio State.
I like that.
Where, they've moved him around. He was originally a will for the team. Brian Flores comes in. They play a little bit more odd front type looks. He's a little bit more of a stack backer, but you got Raekwon Davis at nose tackle, Christian Wilkins and Emmanuel Agba as your down lineman, so he gets more protection. He can play in the middle a little bit more. Then this past year, with the explosiveness that he has, they actually played him up on the line of scrimmage as a rush linebacker in some of their sub-package groups to be a pass rusher with his first step quickness too. And I see a lot of that in Brian Asamoah.
No, I think that's a key point because speaking of Brian Asamoah game, I highlighted the fact that, instinctually it may be a little slow at times or delayed, but one thing was when he decided to go, he went, right? Like it was full speed and he was attacking that gap. And so I think that's really good, especially when you talk about a 3-4 scheme and whether you can send those outside linebackers as that 4th insert rusher or you can send that inside linebacker. I think he'll be really good in that role, right? Being at another blitzer.
So let's bring another name to the table here, Leo Chanal from Wisconsin. And he's a player who I don't think plays to the functional athleticism that maybe showcased at his pro day, in which he had unbelievable shuttle numbers, but he's very explosive. He's one of the best blitzing linebackers in the last couple draft classes, not just this draft class, but Wisconsin was very aggressive with both him and his teammate Jack Sanborn to send those guys in interior gaps, a lot of games, a lot of cross dog. I mean, they threw a lot at opposing offensive lines. And that often led to Leo Chanal getting drawn a running back in pass pro. And there weren't too many guys that could stick 260 pounds coming downhill screaming the way that Leo Chanal did. So you think about teams that are blitz heavy, that have the willingness to be targeted with their blitz packages. It's not just we're going to send the nickel off the edge or we're going to send the Mike backer and everybody else is an organic rush. If you like to exchange your gap lanes as you are attacking with blitzes and get slants up front and loop guys back around, play those games, Leo Chanal is somebody who is really good in run defense between the tackles as well, is somebody who I think can absolutely get his name called. Now the question is for him, does the athletic testing that he's put on display push him into a stratosphere that might be a little more rich than what you functionally see when you watch him play?
So that's an interesting dynamic. And then also when we take this linebacker class in whole, how many of them, do we say are true inside linebackers, right? Mm-hmm. Not many. And I think that's a rarity that Leo Chanal helps him with doing that, right? Like he's able to be a true inside linebacker because when we rattle off all these other names, these are guys that we always talk about being a nickel, being able to run with that third guy. So Leo Chanal, he may benefit actually from being a unicorn in this class, right? Being a true inside thumper guy that teams may want.
Couldn't help nobody mentioned Christian Harris out of Alabama.
We'll get to that.
We was leaving that up for you, Joe.
Oh, okay. You went to the whole table.
We're not going to do that. What I do want to talk about is the valuation of the linebacker position.
Sure.
Because you're on an island on your own. I'm not even going to entertain that.
Surprised that none of y'all mentioned it.
So the linebacker position is one that we've seen take a hit from a valuation perspective because the phrase is the game is played in sub, right? Everybody playing nickel or 3 safeties on the field. You don't see a lot of 4 down linemen and 3 linebackers stacked behind him or 3 down linemen with 2 outside rush linebackers and 2 backers stacked behind him. Like that is your base defense, but that is not something you're consistently seeing be the majority of your personnel when you're on the field. Now, you might get those formations, but there's different guys aligned in some of those spots, and that's a credit to their versatility. So in a group that has so many different options who are day one and day two options in the NFL draft, but them playing a position that has not commanded a lot of intense demand in the NFL draft, how do we think we see that play out this year when you consider some of the strengths and weaknesses of other position groups? Is it going to allow linebackers to come off the board in a way that is more reflective of what we think their true value is? Or is this going to be a linebacker group that sees guys available early on day three who might otherwise should have been off the board by now?
I think we're going to see some linebackers go earlier than we might expect. And I hear you, while the game is predominantly played in sub, you still need those second-level defenders to help kind of impact your defense. And then ideally, you don't have to take some of these linebackers off the field, right? You want to be able to keep them on the field if they can handle those kind of passing game responsibilities. And so I think one of the things that's so unique about this linebacker class is there are so many players that can play in space, that excel in coverage, that are able to, cover man-to-man with backs and even tight ends. Like, that's a strength for this linebacker class. And so I think teams are going to prioritize that. And so I think we're going to see a run on linebacker all the way through day two and early on to day three.
Yeah, I agree, and I really hate the notion that in football that they say one position isn't that important, right? Because you always get in a game and then you don't need that position until you need that position. And so I think just devaluing the linebacker position is not smart, man, and it's just, some of these top offenses that we see, like the Packers, the Rams, the Titans, the Colts, they all attack second-level defenders, whether it's play action or whether it's running the football where you need linebackers to fill gaps. So linebackers are an important position. It's just unfortunate that we're at the phase where it just became the unpopular position for whatever reason.
Yeah, and to add to it, I think that it's important to remember that your linebackers are also typically your core special teams or teamers, and so they're like your special teams are largely comprised of guys that can run and tackle, and those often entail your linebackers. I mean, so there will always be value for linebackers in this game. So.
And you see good value on this year's board. Lots of good options here on day one, day two. We'll see where they end up getting their names called.